Welcome to Office Hours with Attorney Little. Coming to the office today is Keocia Howard. Keocia is a financial coach, divorce recovery advocate, and podcast host. A first-generation wealth builder, Keocia empowers women who are separated and divorced to break generational curses of financial insecurity. Keocia paid off $80,000 of debt within 3 years after her divorce and uses specialized coaching to help other women achieve financial freedom. Keocia, welcome to the office. I'm so excited you're here.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Girl, did I tell you I make candles?
No, you did not.
Yes, so I make candles. I want to burn my signature candle for you. I want you to tell me what you think. It's called Grounds for Divorce. It is a coffee scented candle. Get it?
I get it.
Okay. So while that is marinating and while that is burning, I want to just talk to you a little bit about what you do, your story, all the things. Yeah. So can you tell me how you became a financial coach?
So my journey to becoming a financial coach has been interesting because I'm not really I don't have a background in finance. I'm not this person who just loves math. I really don't like math, but I took a course called Financial Peace University years ago. And when I took it, I realized that like the principles and everything that were taught were just, I gravitated to them. I understood them. They made sense to me. And so for me to be able to apply them, it came natural. And so when I went through my divorce and went through all of my crazy financial stuff personally, but then decided to get back on track, those principles came back to me. And I was like, okay, I need to do what I learned. And it was like riding a bike. It was very easy for me to get back into it. And I knew that it was because those principles were so solid and so easy to follow. And I also knew, though, that it's not as easy for other people to get into any sort of financial change, and specifically after going through a divorce. And so it was just very heavy on my heart to help other people navigate their finances after divorce. And although I don't like math, here I am helping people manage their finances after divorce.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able to pay off $80,000 worth of debt within 3 years after your divorce. At this point, we're, separate finances. How are you able to do that?
Oh, Lord. So literally the Lord. So
as always.
Yes. So part of it for me was the biggest part was just, like I said, getting back to those principles, identifying the fact that, number one, the debt was an issue. I had to really decide for myself, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have all this debt. I'm tired of paying for student loans. I'm tired of, paying these bills every month for things that I can't even see or touch anymore. It's time to get rid of it. And so I made that decision and I went back into those principles. And the biggest one for me was the debt snowball. And using that debt snowball method to pay off the small debt first, and then taking the payment that I was using on the small debt to then turn it over and pay off the large debt, right? And so there was this level of financial discipline that I gained as I continued to do that process. But the biggest thing is truly the Lord. So I had about $60,000 in student loan debt. And I was able to pay off $20,000 of that on my own, just using the debt snowball method, right? And I had a friend who was going through the student loan forgiveness process who said, you should apply. And I said, I don't really think that I qualify. I just want to pay it off and be done with it. And she was like, girl, just apply. It doesn't hurt. Just do it. If you get denied, you get denied. But at least you tried.
Worth a try.
So I applied for the student loan forgiveness. I think something like a year, maybe 9 months goes by. I don't hear anything. Every time I call, there's no updates on it. I just said, you know what? I don't care. I'm paying it off. This is happening during the pandemic when payments weren't due. So instead of making payments, I was just saving the money. I was like, I don't care what happens. I'm paying this off. I don't want anything to do with these student loans anymore. It's going to be out of my life. So I'm stacking. I got, $30,000 in the bank that I'm ready to call these people and be like, take your money and leave me alone. So I call to pay. I call them up and I say, hey, I'm ready to pay. I want to get out of this. And the lady's like, tick, 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 looking at my account. She says, thank you, Ms. Howard, for your service. Your loans have been forgiven.
Wow.
I said, what? She said, yeah, your student
And
loans
you never got an update, no, nothing in the mail?
I got 0.
Wow.
And she goes, you didn't get our letter? I'm like, y'all haven't sent me a letter? I'm like, if I got a letter that said that, we would not be talking right now. So I said, you're going to have to send me something in writing because I just don't believe it. So she says, look in your portal. Surely enough, I log into my account. She sent me the message and it's got the document. It shows every loan that is paid off, everything. And it's just completely gone.
Wow.
Null and void. So I went from thinking I had, another $40,000 in debt that I was ready to call and pay off 30 to this woman telling me, no, the debt is done, to just being completely debt free like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the beauty of that, though, because a lot of times when people aren't making payments, they spend the money.
Exactly.
You had the discipline to stack the money.
Exactly. Wow. Because I knew I was determined. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially when it comes to paying off debt. Sometimes we could be so comfortable with it. And especially in today's society, the way that we think about debt, it's like it's normal. It's just a part of life. And for me, it was like, no, I don't want this to be a part of it.
To have such amounts of debt sometimes.
Yeah. And it's like, no, not for me. I don't want to owe you anything. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I want to operate on the money that I have. When I get money from the work that I'm doing, I want all that money to be mine to use at my disposal, not to pay some company with all this enormous interest. I took out maybe $30,000 in student loans. And after, 10, 11 years, it was $60,000. So
double.
Yeah.
And this is while making payments.
Exactly.
Still double.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Were finances ever an issue in your marriage?
Yes. So finances in my marriage were interesting. It was never that we didn't have enough money. It was always more of a difference in how to utilize the money that we had, right? And then the other side of that, and I'll be very careful how I talk about this because, that's my daughter's dad. So I want to make sure in everything that I do, I am being careful to not, defame him or dishonor him. But there was a time in our marriage where we decided to allow him to start a business. And so his business was operating. But as you know, when you start a business, things can be inconsistent in terms of income.
Yeah.
The beauty for us and also the curse was that I was working full time and able to make enough money to support our family. And so the inconsistencies on the business side didn't impact us negatively. But I think as a man, you have that desire to provide and all of that. And so I think that indirectly, kind of caused issues in the marriage. But in terms of finances, we were always fine. But that difference in how we operated financially definitely played a role.
Did that lead to the actual cause for the divorce?
No, I think maybe for him, some of that, like I said, mindset on being the man and wanting to be the provider may have led to some decisions. But, no, for us, the financial piece wasn't a direct impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your role as a financial coach, what services can you help people with? Like, when should someone hire you?
Well, someone should hire me when they are feeling overwhelmed and they're unable to figure out how to operate financially. I am a huge proponent of people getting out here, getting financial literacy and figuring out how to do things on their own without paying anybody. If you can figure out how to do this for yourself and operate and do it like I was, then absolutely do that. But if you're struggling, if you're on the hamster wheel and you feel like you've tried 3 or 4 different things and it's just not working for you and you're not getting to that place, you might need a coach. Because the thing about finance is it's really not just about the money. It's not just about the math, right? Which I think is why I gravitate to it, because adding and subtracting, we can do that quickly on a calculator and figure out how much money you need in order to make ends meet, right? It's not about that. It's the emotional part of it and the spending that people really need that guidance and that coaching through. It's figuring out what are those things that are keeping you from applying what you're learning, and what are those things that are keeping you stuck in some of those cycles and ways. Once you're able to break through that, then you're able to really overcome some of those obstacles and pull through. But specific things that I help people with is budgeting. You got to have a budget. You have to understand what your money is doing every month. And I call it a money to-do list. You're literally just telling your money what to do every month.
Yeah.
Because if you don't tell it what to do, it's going to be...
tell you what to do.
Exactly. It's going to be gone, and you're just going to be like, what happened to my money?
Right.
And so you need a money to-do list. I help people build plans to get out of debt. And so teaching you about the debt snowball and how that works and how to apply it to your finances. And savings, obviously, is a huge thing. People need savings. They don't understand that sometimes. They think the credit card is the emergency fund, and that just, again, keeps you in that same cycle. So, yeah.
Do you ever work with divorcing populations?
Yes, I work primarily with divorced women.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is my top category of people who I want to work with and who I look to work with. And so divorced women are near and dear to my heart because, one, I am one, but two, I just think that we're an overlooked population of people. I think when you get a divorce, people automatically kind of put a red letter on you and just say, oh, that person is divorced. But then it's also kind of like just business as usual. Everybody just move along. And the reality is that there's so many struggles that come up as part of the journey of divorce that you really do need that support through that process.
So if a woman came to you and said, hey, Keocia, I'm contemplating divorce, what should I be doing to prepare financially? What would you tell her?
The first thing I would tell her is to call a lawyer.
Okay.
You need to get legal advice. What you can do financially during a divorce is not just, you can't just take up and do whatever you want to do with your money, right? And so for me, I reached out to an attorney and spoke to that attorney, and she said, you have to continue operating the way that you were operating during the marriage. Just because you're thinking about getting a divorce doesn't mean that all of a sudden you can start doing things differently with your money, right? Unless you and your spouse come to an agreement that money will be handled in a different way. So my biggest piece of advice would be definitely to contact a lawyer and understand what are your rights, what can you do legally. If there's something that you need to get in writing, you want to do that, because I would hate to tell you, save up money so you can be prepared to do things, and then you save all this money and then find out half of that money goes to your spouse, right? So getting that legal advice to understand what actually is okay for you during the divorce is going to be paramount. And then just making sure that you're doing your research and getting that knowledge. How much does an attorney cost, right? How much is it going to cost you in legal fees to actually proceed with this? Another thing many people don't know about is sometimes your employer may have a legal benefit. Yeah. And so if that is something that you're able to get through your employer, I would go ahead and research that, talk to your HR department and see if that's something that you have access to or that you're eligible for, because that can really help to pay for some of those legal fees.
You're right, because once you, and this is me from a lawyer perspective, but yeah, there's a standing order that basically says you can't just start moving money. You can't, cut the electricity bill, all those things. But one of the things I tell my clients, if you're contributing to a retirement account, stop. No one's going to force you to contribute to a retirement account. Yeah. So that money could be going toward debt that is going to have to get paid off, and you're not asking for it. Go ahead and start doing that. But yeah, don't balloon this retirement account because that's going to be divided.
Exactly.
So we talked about the ladies who are contemplating divorce. What about the ones who are already divorced? Like, how can they start to rebuild financially?
Yeah. This is such an interesting topic because there's a few schools of thought on what to do after a divorce. From where I sit, working with women who are divorced from the emotional place and from the healing place, in addition to the finance, I would say, especially if you're early in the divorce process, let's say your divorce is still pretty fresh, is don't immediately start doing a whole lot of stuff. you need to really focus on what I would call your survival tools, right? And so when we're young, we're taught that in order to survive, we have the basic needs. They're food, clothing, shelter, water, like, right? And so the same thing applies to our finances. We need to be focused in that stage very early after divorce on those survival categories: your housing costs, your food costs, your clothing costs, and your transportation costs. Let's get the basics down. Let's get used to living in our new normal. Let's just get used to being in this new state, right? And in addition to that, you also need to be paying the minimum on any debts that you have. But let's just get used to where we are. And any money that's above and beyond that, save it. Be putting that money to the side, because then when you are finally kind of settled a little bit more in your new normal, now you have a bucket of money that you can go to start paying off debt, to start reaching some of those other goals that you may decide to set for yourself. So start small, very humble beginnings, focus on those primary areas of spending, and then you want to start focusing on making sure that you have solid goals that you can start to budget for as you expand out. Okay, this is my new normal. What do I want the next 6 months to look like, right? Again, small steps, looking in the very near future versus thinking, 10 years down the line. You're worried about, how am I going to retire? How am I going to pay for my kids to go to college? There's so many things that are being thrown at you while you're also just trying to heal and just trying to get used to the fact that when I wake up in the morning, there's nobody there. Now I'm packing my kids up to send them to dad's house or mom's house for the weekend and then get them back. Like, these things take a toll on you. And so I say slow and steady. Start with those basics and then slowly start to set goals for yourself, and then make sure that you're applying those goals to your budget.
It's interesting because, we don't think about the amount of purchases we make from an unhealed state. Because I know when I was in law school, like if I got a bad grade or something, I immediately, ran to the mall or something because it was like a replacement of value. I needed to put that value back. And so who knows how much, and this is me in school, not working. So who knows some of the things that we do. But okay, if a man were to come to you, would your advice change?
No.
Same thing?
It's the same for men and women. And that it just is what it is. The principles are the principles. You need to focus on that healing. To your point, it's like you can't, if you were in a car accident and you broke a limb or you had to get 15 stitches, you wouldn't wake up the next day and just go run a marathon.
Yeah.
You would have a cast on your leg for a period of time. That leg would have to heal. Those stitches would have to heal. Then the doctor would say, okay, the fracture is healed, but now we got to get you in physical therapy because this leg doesn't have any muscle. Now you got to build up the muscle in that leg. Then you can finally get to the place where you're actually getting movement in that leg and able to walk again. And then maybe eventually a few years down the line, you might be able to run a 5K. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to take that time to allow yourself to heal. If you were to get off that leg, if you were to get on that leg too early after that incident, even after getting the cast off, you would be right back in the hospital again because you're doing too much. So it's slow and steady wins the race, whether you're a man or a woman. I want to tell men the most, pursue your healing because I find that women are the ones who typically are going after that. They're typically the ones who are saying, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas men are more so hesitant to do that, hesitant to seek out that help, and understanding that you're going through those emotions just like she is. So you need to find a way to process those things in a healthy way also.
So man or woman, same advice.
Yes.
Would your advice change if there were children in the picture?
Slightly.
So?
I wouldn't say change. I would just add the caveat that obviously you need to make room for your children in terms of your budget numbers are going to be slightly different because you have kids. You may have an additional category that is, just discretionary money for things that come up with your kids, school field trips, things like that. But also don't overcompensate for the fact that their dad is not around by doing a lot of extra things for your kids. So I think For people who are divorced with children, there really is another layer, because you're not just navigating your own emotions, you're also helping your children navigate and manage their emotions. And then that has another impact on you. And so sometimes the tendency is to, buy them extra stuff, or go take them extra places, or do a whole lot and never tell them no, because you don't want them to feel the hurt and the pain that they're already feeling from the divorce. And you really don't want to do those things because, one, it doesn't put you in a good financial situation and you have to take care of them. And two, it doesn't teach them good financial habits either. So you really have to be mindful of what you're showing your children and how you're teaching your children about finances inadvertently through the way that you treat them after the divorce.
Yeah, because they're watching.
They're watching.
They're watching you as well.
And they're picking up on those things. Yeah.
What would be the biggest money lesson you've learned since becoming a coach?
The biggest money lesson for me would be personal finance is truly personal. It is one-to-one. Every person, every situation is different. We all come with our own baggage when it comes to finances. You grew up a certain way. I grew up a certain way. That has already put something in my mind. We all have a mindset around money, right? And so I can throw at you, hey, if you just do 1, 2, and 3, this is the key to your personal there are financial gurus who do that. They give you the keys to success, the keys to your financial freedom, right? Well, if it were that simple, everybody would be rich. Yeah. We would be out here wealthy and we wouldn't be having this conversation because we would all have the keys, right? But it's the individuality, it's the personal nature of it, which is part of the reason also why I wanted to do this type of coaching, is because especially coming out of a divorce, there's some very nuanced things to that emotional part that you're just not going to pick up a book and it says do 1, 2, 3, and then voila, it's done. And so the personal nature of our finances really, really pulls at me, because that has to be addressed. Those personal issues have to be addressed. Those spiritual issues have to be addressed in order to get to the root of, well, why are you spending this way? Why are you doing this thing this way? Like when I got my divorce, child, you couldn't tell me anything. I had gotten a raise and a promotion at work.
Nice.
So I was making more money than I ever had. I was in a whole new tax bracket. I was feeling myself. It was like, cool. I got an apartment. I had furniture. I had all the things. And
I don't need you.
Exactly. I got this. And one day I was on the website looking at like other furniture because I didn't have enough furniture. I needed more furniture. I'm looking for things. I'm looking for bar stools. Now this is and I say that I love bar stools. Bar stools are great, but this is a pandemic. Like I don't have no guests. Ain't nobody coming over here. You know what I'm saying? We in the house by ourselves.
We don't need the bar stools.
We don't need the bar stools by now. But honey, I got those bar stools. And then I was like, I need 3. Girl, a whole 3, because the bar was that big. I needed 3. And then I was like, I need a vanity. Like I don't even wear makeup. This is just for y'all today, okay? But sis had to have a vanity. Like it was just, and I slowly started to see myself and be like, why? And in the back of my mind, it was because when he comes to pick up his daughter, I want him to see that we're good, that I don't need you. That look at how wonderful my life is. Look at what I can do by myself without you. Exactly. That healing. And that's when I realized, oh, this is crazy. Because I'm making more money than I've ever made, but I'm not paying off any debt. I'm not growing this money in any way. I'm using it to buy stuff to prove to somebody who's no longer in my life that I have worth and that I have value. I'm trying to validate myself to somebody else. And so that it's still after all this, right? And so that is where I got to see for myself that like, hey, this is not about the money, because you got the money, you're making the money, but why are you spending it here instead of using it there? It's because you're not healed, because you're trying to pull out of somebody else something that you really don't need to be worried about getting from them. And so, yeah.
So how would you start to address that healing? Because I don't think we've ever like connected the dots between your emotions and the way you spend your money.
Mm-hmm.
How would you start to address that first?
First things first, I think therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I love therapy. Even now, as a person who I think is safe for me to say, I'm healed.
Mm-hmm.
But I still keep an appointment with my therapist. Yeah. Like, we're going to go, we're going to talk. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we go, and she and I, we just laugh and talk the whole time about mm-hmm. whatever, because she's like, I really don't have anything mm-hmm. to talk to you about. Okay, that's cool, but I'm here because if something come up, I need you to dot the I's and cross the T's. Therapy, one-on-one, 100%, mm-hmm. you need to do, especially after a divorce. On top of that, there are groups out there. There's support. A group called Divorce Care is mm-hmm. one that's near and dear to my heart that I facilitate through my church. And I love Divorce Care and what we do because it really walks people through the spiritual issues that you face during and after a divorce and helps you recognize, hey, these are the red flags. These are the areas to look out for. These are the things that you really need to be preparing yourself for, whether you're experiencing that right now or not. Know that these are parts of the divorce process that you're going to need to address. And I mean, it's 2024. Mm-hmm. There's tons of resources out there. The issue is people are not doing now. It. Oh, my God.
Can't we? We just blinked.
It's 2025.
Yes, it is 2025 now.
Yes, but there's unending resources out there to help people with divorce recovery. It is one thing that is near and dear to my heart. I can't say that I'm a recovery specialist or anything like that, but I am a recovery advocate. And so if you're going to work with a coach, a financial coach who is helping you after a divorce, be sure that they also have some level of sensitivity and compassion for people going through divorce.
Correct.
Because again, you don't want to be given just a laundry list of do this with no consideration for where you are emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was so good. How can people find you, Keocia? If someone wants to work with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to debtfreedivorcee.com. Debtfreedivorcee.com. No hyphen, just straight like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you. This was great, Candace.
It was. Keocia, this was so amazing. You are just a breath of fresh air. May we all stack in 2025. I have a gift for you. It's your very own Grounds for Divorce candle.
Thank you.
Let me know how you like it. Burn it whenever you're ready. Yes, open it.
Get a little. It smells good. I mean, it smells good in here too, but this is great. Thank you, Candace.
You're welcome. Thank you again.
Oh.